Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 of the best Swiss Army knives that you can have as part of your everyday carry. Let's check them out. So Swiss Army knives, of course, are made by the company Victorinox, and their range is pretty exhaustive. They have perhaps an intimidating number of models for the uninitiated out there. Everything from great camping and hiking models, stuff for tech workers, lots of specialized stuff. But what if you just need something you want to carry every day? Good set of tools that are going to get you through without adding too much of that extra specialized stuff that may be a little bit less useful. Well, that's what this list is for. These are going to be great options to just take with you and cover most of your bases. Of course, you are going to have to figure out how you want to carry those knives every day. Because, one thing, you can just slip them into your pocket. It's been going on for a long time, but if that's not your thing, there are a few other options as well. You can always resort to something like a belt pouch. That's what I personally do with my everyday Swiss Army knife. Victorinox makes a few options. We've got a nice tooled leather pouch here for about $24 that comes with a honing steel right there, which is kind of nice. And Victorinox's steel is relatively soft on the grand scheme of things, so that kind of tool can be really useful for resetting your edge. Or you could go with a less expensive nylon model. These start around the $10 mark. Very good options. Another cool option that could be really nice is this magnetic pocket sheath. This is not a Victorinox product. This is from the Italian company MKM, and it has a little magnetic flap here, so you can kind of loop that onto the outside of your pocket, and it gives you a nice stationary little pouch for not all Swiss Army knives. Some of the thicker ones we're going to look at here today won't fit this, but some of the slimmer ones will fit quite nicely. Beyond that, we've got stuff like the SwissQlip, which you can use to add, a pocket clip to some of the larger Swiss Army knives, the 91mm size, or stuff like the P7 suspension clip, which can attach to the key ring on some of these knives and give you a nice little clip to hold it stationary. It's going to dangle off the bottom there, but it's going to be kept in place quite nicely. Barring all that, probably the easiest way for most folks to carry a Swiss Army knife, and the way many folks around the world carry a Swiss Army knife, is on your keychain. And here are two of the best models, I think, for an everyday carry. Now, the obvious choice would be the Classic, but I'm here to make the argument that the Rambler is a better option. And it's for one main reason right here. Your keys are going to be attached on this side, and the blade opens out, opens away from where your keys are attached, which is not what the Classic does. That opens on the side of the keys. But because the Rambler opens the opposite way, it's going to make it much easier to use that blade. Beyond that, it's just a little bit thicker and a little bit more expensive than the Classic SD. Still just a $30 knife. And you get an extra tool as a result. And that tool is this combination tool right here. It gives you a small Phillips, a bottle opener, and a wire stripper all on one implement, which is pretty nice. Beyond that, some really nice everyday stuff. A nail file with a small flathead screwdriver on the tip, a small pair of spring-loaded scissors, and of course, everyone's favorite, or at least mine when I was a kid, the toothpick and tweezers. I was always really fascinated by that. Get you by in a pinch for sure. Now, what if you want a keychain-sized Swiss Army knife but more capability? That's where the MiniChamp comes in. An implement-packed little model here. Now, I chose the ALOX handled version of this knife, which is constructed with aluminum rather than a plastic-like material. I'll get to more of that in a little bit, but one of the cool things right off the bat is it's just barely thicker than that Rambler I just showed you. And you don't get the toothpick and tweezers, but your folding implements are doubled in essentially the same amount of space. It's got the same tools as the Rambler, plus the addition of a few others. For one thing, your main blade does open opposite side of the keys, so you maintain that capability. It's got that combination tool. It's got the pair of scissors. On the other side, we've got that nail file again. Instead of the small flathead, you actually have a fingernail cleaning tip there, which is nice. It can also work on some very specific Phillips heads, I should mention. And to make up for the loss of the flathead there, they add it on to this tiny little ruler that we have on the opposite side here that has inch and centimeter measurements. We also get a small cuticle pusher and 2 more blades essentially to work with. We've got a small Wharncliffe blade, and they call it an orange peeler with an integrated scraper, but I think it also makes a great package opener. Great for those plastic clam packs that are so frustrating to get open. Really nice implement to have on hand right there. Now, I mentioned the aluminum handled version a little bit earlier, which is, I think, absolutely the version of this knife to pick. There are versions of this knife with the red Celador scales, the plastic-like material, that come with a small retractable pen or a small LED light. Those things are nice, and definitely the pen can come in handy during a pinch, but it is going to be a small thing to write with. And on the LED light front, chances are you've got your cell phone on you, which is going to have a better LED than you're going to get in this device anyway. So go with the ALOX, I think, because on top of all that, this is going to wear really nicely while it is on your keyring. It's going to stand up over the years better than any of those red handled versions. And the price on these coming in right now about $63. All right, moving up from the keychain sized tools, let's say you want a little bit more size to work with, but you don't want to go too bulky. And that's where these kind of, shall we say, minimalist selections come in, where you want to get the most out of the least space while still having something larger than your keychain sized knife. And perhaps nothing fits that description better than the Bantam ALOX. There is a red Celador version of this knife, like the MiniChamp, that will come with the toothpick and tweezers, but the ALOX version, just look how slim that tool is. Virtually unnoticeable in your pocket. It is a single layer thick, has 2 implements. You've got your main pen blade, and you've got the combo tool that packs actually a lot of functionality into this one device. It looks like a bottle opener, and it's going to do that just fine. They've also managed to make this work on tin cans as well, so this will also be a can opener. You've got the wire stripper notch, you've got a flathead screwdriver / pry tip there on the end, and in a pinch, if you use the corner of that combo tool, it can even turn some Phillips head screws. You're not going to be able to put a ton of torque on it, mind you, but for small duty stuff, that can get you by. And if you need to maximize your torque on the flathead portion, this tool even has a nice crisp half stop that'll allow you to flex the entire length of the tool on to that turning action. So very cool. Red ALOX version right here, which is a KnifeCenter exclusive on this knife, comes in $27. So that's definitely going to give you kind of the most in the least space. But if you want a few more implements than that, the next one you should look at is the compact model. And despite the name, it's not nearly as compact as the knives we've just looked at, but they've managed to fit a lot into a 2-layer tool right here. And the price on this comes in right now at about $55. You'll have to pardon the pocket wear on this particular example because we didn't have one on the shelf to film on the day we shot this video, but it's so popular around here, I was just able to borrow one of my coworkers' examples. On the front side, you have got your stainless steel blade. You've got a big pair of scissors right there and the combo tool that we just looked at. With that selection, you've got a lot of functionality packed in. On the reverse side, we have the corkscrew, which also in this case houses a small eyeglass screwdriver. That's also available separately. You can fit that into any other Swiss Army knife that has the corkscrew. We've also got one of the more interesting tools, or perhaps the more difficult to understand implements on a Swiss Army knife, and that's the parcel hook. You can use it for, kind of pulling strings tight, that sort of things. You might have to be a little more inventive to come up with some day-to-day uses for it. But on the compact, not on every model that features the hook, but on the compact, they've given it a little section of nail file there right on the back. So you've got added functionality. Beyond that, we've also got what Victorinox calls the plus scales here, which in addition to the toothpick and tweezers, also come equipped with a small sewing pin there on the back. Can be very useful for mending your clothes on the go if you need to, all kinds of other little things. Interestingly, a lot of the other Swiss Army knife mold or handles have the hole for a pin just have to add the pin separately, so keep that in mind. The other thing that the Plus scales give you is a pressurized ballpoint pen cartridge. Again, you're not going to be using this as your primary implement, but it's handy to have in a pinch. It is pressurized, so it can write upside down a little better than a standard ballpoint. And to make it a little easier on yourself, you can always place that implement behind the parcel hook. There you go. Gives you another use for it. Bring the hook down, and then you've got the rest of the tool to kind of write with as you need it. So as you can see, a lot of functionality in just a 2-layer space. Some of the tools we're going to look at later do offer more functionality, but they also come with the additional bulk that goes with it. So the compact is a really good choice for keeping things nice and lean. All right, next up, some folks may argue is not actually a Swiss Army knife at all, but again, keeping with the minimalist theme of getting the most out of the least space, the SwissCard series from Victorinox. And there's the classic and the light version, which I'll go over. With these, you don't even have to figure out another way to carry these like you might with one of these other Swiss Army knives. All you have to do is have enough space in your wallet. You can slip it right in there. Very cool. Prices on these, the classic comes in about $42 and the light comes in about $48. I'll go over the classic right here first. What you've got, you do have a small pen blade, works as a letter opener or a small utility knife, of course. A nice standalone set of spring-loaded scissors. And then on the other side, it's essentially riffs on the same implements you've seen on the folding tools, just sliding into this plastic case. Nail file with flathead, toothpick, tweezers, and ballpoint pen again. And then you've also got a centimeter ruler on the bevel on one side. Flip it over, you've got inches on the back. Really cool, very slim tool. And the nice thing about these, if you want to take these traveling, say through an airport, you can simply leave the knife blade at home. You've still got the rest of your functionality on hand. If you go with the SwissCard Lite, you've got the knife blade and scissors. You've got the toothpick and tweezers. You've also got the small sewing pin, which both of these tools have. I forgot to mention that on the previous one. Where this one differs is, obviously you can see the magnifying lens right there. It's going to come in handy, especially for folks who wear reading glasses. If those happen to get damaged or misplaced, you can use that to see some real fine print in a pinch. You've also got a small LED. As I said, the LED on your phone is probably going to be better off than this. But the thing where I think this kind of surpasses the classic is this 4-sided driver implement right there. Not heavy duty for sure, but definitely gives you a few different options for turning some screws on the go. All right, now we're gonna move up to some of the more full-size or full-featured Swiss Army knife options for everyday carry. And the first is from the Evolution series. This is the S14. Comes in about $56 right now. This is a 3-layer tool, but you can see the handle scales are a little bit different. You've got a little more thickness and some contouring going on. Gives you a little bit more of a positive grip, a little more ability to index the tool in your hand and know exactly where your fingers are sitting. And right here around the shield, it's even depressed a little bit, or concave, I should say, which makes a really nice pinching spot for your fingers to interface with the tool. Now, the S14, it is a 3-layer tool. You've got one of the few full-size Swiss Army knives with a nail file, which is one of the big reasons why it merits consideration right here. Me personally, I carry a knife in the Evolution family. I carry the EvoGrip S18. One of the reasons is I like having that nail file on hand. I use my Swiss Army knife for personal grooming a lot, actually. Paired up with that, you've got a single blade. You've got, rather than a combo tool that we've seen so far, you've got basically the essential combination of the can opener on one side, which also works on some small Phillips heads for a screwdriver, and you've also got a cap lifter with a pry bar / flathead tip. And unique, pretty much unique to this series and a couple other of the Wenger models that made it over to Victorinox when those two companies officially merged, is the driver or the cap lifter on this side has a lockout mechanism where if you're putting pressure on this tool, pushing in, it'll actually push into the tool or push into the knife handle a little bit and prevent it from snapping closed while you're working. That can be a really handy thing. Giving up the option, however, you don't get that nice half stop that some of the other tools have. So choose wisely in that case. What else do we have here? We've also got a pair of scissors that, rather than the traditional Victorinox offerings that have a simple bent spring, this one actually uses the backspacer as its back spring. And it also has micro serrations on the scissor head itself. In a way, it's kind of self-sharpening over time is what they claim. I can certainly attest that they last a good long time. Getting back to the main blade, I forgot to mention, this is one of the few Swiss Army knives with a locking blade. There are a few out there, but there aren't many. You do have to depress this lever, which is in the path of the blade, so it takes a little bit of care and getting used to make sure you're doing the action safely. But it is nice to have that extra bit of safety from a lock during your day-to-day use. Backside of the tool, you've got that corkscrew, which means you can add the eyeglass screwdriver to that if you wish. Also, of course, comes in handy for its namesake reason. We've also got a leather awl here. Nice crisp edge and an eyelet, can be used for sewing. Probably a little less useful in most folks' day-to-day usage, but this can definitely be useful as a scraper or a punch in certain scenarios. So it's cool to have, and it doesn't take up any extra space in the meantime. All right, next up, not part of the Evolution series, I got two more kind of full-featured ones to show you, and they kind of go hand in hand. We've got the Explorer, comes in about $58, and the Deluxe Tinker for about $62. We'll talk about the tools that these knives have in common first. First up, toothpick and tweezers. Backside, you've got the awl we just mentioned, the corkscrew, and the parcel hook. No nail file on this iteration of the parcel hook, I should mention. On the front side of the tool, you've got your main blade. You've got, instead of a nail file, you've got a smaller pen blade option right there, so two edges to work with. Can be nice to use your big blade for most of the stuff you need day to day, but then keep that other blade razor sharp for those just in case scenarios. You've also got the big pair of scissors that we saw on the Compact with the traditional bent spring. You've got the cap lifter and can opener there, and as you can see, the cap lifter has that nice half stop, but you don't get the self lockout function here. And as for the Explorer, you've got one more layer of tools going on. So this is a 4-layer tool. You've got a magnifying lens, which we talked about on the SwissCard Lite there a minute ago. You've also got a nice crisp 3D Phillips head driver right there. A little bit crisper than some of the other tools they offer sometimes, so it should have a little bit better engagement overall. Nice handy thing. And unlike some Swiss Army knives that have a Phillips head that rotates out from the back, gives you kind of a T handle, this one is inline, which is a little more intuitive for most folks to use. Moving over to the Deluxe Tinker now, you don't have the 3D Phillips or the magnifying lens, but the other tools are the same. Actually, scratch that, they've actually taken the Phillips head and put it on the back side of the tool, replacing the corkscrew instead. What you get on that layer instead of those two other tools is a spring-loaded set of pliers. Small set, not heavy duty, but really handy in a, you know the word. But you've got a tip here that's almost needle nose-like in fashion, and you've got a little wider kind of nut grabbing section here at the back. Just a nice, precise set of grippers right here. Can come in handy in a whole lot of unexpected ways day to day. One thing I should note is none of these full-featured Swiss Army knives I just mentioned, these last three, are gonna fit in that MKM pocket sheath I showed you at the beginning, so keep that in mind. All right, coming up on the last two. First, we need something a little bit fancier. If you need something that's a little more gentlemanly depending on your job, or even if you're doing something, heading to an event that you might need to you might not want to be seen with, you know, typical red Swiss Army knife. And that is where the Cadet comes in. Really, this knife fits in really well to that minimalist category I was talking about earlier. It's the same profile, or the same outline essentially, as the Bantam A-locks, but it's a little bit thicker. You got 2 layers going on here, and the standard silver A-locks just looks super classy right here. Implements, you have got a main blade, you have got a nail file with the nail cleaner at the tip, and then on the front side, you've got that classic combo of tools, your can opener with Phillips functionality, and your cap lifter with flathead and pry bar and wire stripper functionality built in. I should mention that this knife works especially well with that suspension clip we showed earlier. It can work really nicely inside a suit pocket. It's going to keep it easily accessible without it just kind of banging around in the bottom of a pocket. All right, last but certainly not least on our list of the top 10 EDC-friendly Swiss Army knives. What if you've watched all of this and thought, man, I just need a knife. I don't need all this extra frippery, all the extra tools. Don't overcomplicate things. Victorinox has you covered there as well with the Hunter Pro, specifically I think for EDC, the ALOX models, because they look great and they give you a little bit of extra grip like all the ALOX models do as well. This one right here is a limited edition. It's only available in 2022 with this particular color. This is the Thunder Gray, but a red and silver ALOX version are regular line items every day. Blade, you've got about 4 inches of length, and it's made to be a little stouter than the standard Swiss Army knife blade, which is incredibly slicey and very friendly. This one goes for a little bit more strength behind it. Same thing with the mechanism. You've got a mid-mounted lockback, very robust and easy to use as well. You've also got a pocket clip right here. It is a right side pocket clip, so this is not necessarily very lefty friendly, but you can get versions of this knife without a pocket clip, it should be mentioned. Also, this does come with a nice long lanyard fob essentially, but we didn't put it on here for this particular video. I personally think it doesn't need it because there's plenty of grip on this very premium feeling tool. There you go. There's your single blade Swiss Army knife that you were looking for. But that's it. That's all I've got for this list today. The cool thing about it is there's no wrong answer. If a Swiss Army knife has the tools that you like, it has the implements that you think are going to be useful, that is your best Swiss Army knife for EDC. But if you're not sure where to start, this list I think is a great primer for what this company has to offer. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what your pick for the best EDC Swiss Army knives are down in the comments. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description and they'll send you over to KnifeCenter.com. While you're over there, don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because if you're going to be spending your money on one of these knives, you can at least be earning some free money to spend on your next ones. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.